Hi, in this presentation we're going to take a closer look at the Nifty Scripties Customizer app and at the extensions contained within it, what they do and how they work. So once again I'm inside the app registry. If I look at the extensions section here in the navigator of the Nifty Scripties app, I'll see a number, well 10 in total, of extensions listed, only one of which is enabled, and I want to deep dive on this one right now. So if I click next here, I'll see the JSON that effectively defines what this extension does. So the name of the extension is the Community Flipkart Layout. It's a UI extension denoted by this particular extension point, and it is designed to work on the community's app within Connections. So they're the broad rules. Within the payload, we can kind of refine those broad rules into a more precise set of operations. So specifically, when a user uses communities, we wanted to inject these two files. There's one JavaScript file and there's a CSS file. These originate from a global samples repo on GitHub, which I'll show you a little bit later on. Only apply these files if you're logged in as me. That's a whitelist filter that we've discussed earlier. And in fact, we also have an exclusion rule which says don't apply this for every path, but actually exclude these particular URLs. So with that in mind, let's go to communities. And you can see I've got some sample communities here in this trial organization, 4 in total, and this is the traditional layout of the communities page. However, what this script has done is inject another UI element up here. So if I click on the right hand image, it completely re-renders my page. So I still have my 4 communities, but they're now rendered as what we call flip cards. Notice that it uses the image of the underlying community. If I hover, then they flip and display me the same summary information, i.e. the number of people in the community, who updated the community last, and when, and so forth. So it is a radically different UI, and what you'd expect, therefore, if you were to view the source of the page, that you would see those resources that we just saw in the JSON being part of the page somehow or other. So if I search for the keyword customizer, you see that here, just at the end of the head section of the document, the CSS resource has been inserted there. I can actually click this and we'll see a bunch of styles, some tile styles, and I think some flip styles. You can imagine that these rules will be applied to the UI that we just saw. If I go back to the original page and search for customizer once again, at the bottom of the document, the very bottom of the document, just at the end of the body, you can see there's a JavaScript injection. So the 2 resources have been included in the response. The CSS has gone into the head section, and the JavaScript has gone into the body section. Again, I can click on the JavaScript here. It's not a trivial script. It's got some standard wait for type of code up here. It's got a show table which will display the traditional or redisplay, I should say, the traditional layout. But more interestingly, it's got this show tiles function, which essentially is the piece of script really that shows the flip cards. The create com tiles, which would be create community tiles function, is interesting. If I search for that, I see various references to it in the source code. You can see here, if I just scroll down a little bit, what the code is doing, it does a Dojo query of the original page. It grabs various bits of data that's going to need to display within the tiles, like update by, update on, etc. So it actually gets that, it clones the image, and then it can create tiles and assign that data back and display it within the tile rendering when that's required. So that's an overview of the code. I mentioned earlier on that this code came from directory or a repo called global samples. All of those repos referenced in the cloud originate under GitHub IBM CNX Dev, so IBM Connections Developers organization on GitHub, and you can see the global samples repo is right here. There's 102 repos there at present, but if I drill down on this, you will see various actual samples from Hello World to profiles, etc. The flip card was the sample we were looking at, and so the CSS file and the JavaScript file that we were just exploring, Customizer has a snapshot of all of these repositories, the latest snapshot at any given time. So the source code is here. You can kind of look at it, extend it, contribute changes back, etc. In fact, the JSON file is also here. The JSON file doesn't have to be here, but actually when you want to register this application with the app registry, then that JSON file can simply be copied and pasted using the code editor into the app registry. So everything you need is there on GitHub in the various repositories, and you can bring it all together here in the app registry, and you can create cool applications like so. So now that you've seen the Community Flipkart extension run end-to-end, you can apply the same concepts and patterns to the remaining extensions. So bulk delete members from a community, it's disabled. If I click here, I can enable that one specifically. If I deep dive on it, I see that the JSON is the same structure as we saw previously, so therefore I expect a JavaScript file called bulkdelete.js to be inserted when I visit communities pages. So if I were to take that one as an example, I've got 4 communities here. If I visit the top community and look at the members page, it's the standard members page. It's got 4 buttons here across the top. I'm not an owner of that community, however, so if I go back and pick a community like Sports and Social, for which I am an owner, and I look at the members page there, then what the code does is it adds this option called bulk delete members. If I click on that button, I'm given a people picker, and I can choose people en masse, if you like, to delete from the community. I don't wish to do so at this particular time, but nonetheless, the alternative for me in a large community would be to delete users one by one, which is very time consuming. So that's another extension that's useful for you, provided in the Nifty Scripties app. So I think we have time for one final example. Let's look at this particular extension in the Nifty Scripties app. It's called Open Search Results in New Window. It's disabled at the moment, so I will enable it. So if I go to Communities and perform a search, I'll search for the term Customizer. Now, the results, as you can see, will be posted in a row as follows, but if I click on any of these, previously the traditional experience would be to replace the current page with the content of the result. However, now if I click on that particular entry there, rather than being transported within the current page to wikis, a new tab is opened, and I can always return to my search results then at any given time. So a small behavioral tweak, but one that's very useful. Again, it just shows you the capability of little things that you can do with Customizer. Now, remember that all of the samples here are available on the IBM Connections developer site. So take the JSON, install the application, look at the repos that the samples come from. You can create your own repo here, you can extend those samples, you can contribute back and so forth. If there's anything that's not understandable, remember that immediately you can go to the Customizer doc, which is also on that site. There's extensive documentation here explaining all facets of Customizer. So really, there's never been a better time to get going. The samples can be installed very quickly. They work on cloud and on-prem. Get going today, and please contribute back. Thank you very much for your time.